Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Unshakeable People podcast, where we shape minds and build leaders. My name is Katie Kaspari. I'm your host, and I'm very happy to see you tuning in for this episode. Your continued support means the world to me. I hope you've been doing well since we last connected, and if you haven't, that's okay too. I want you to remember it's not about how many times we fall, but how many times we stand back up. In today's episode, we're going to discuss a subject that I know resonates with so many of us: battling laziness and finding motivation. It's very easy to feel stuck sometimes, quite literally. But I'm here to share with you some simple but effective rules to reignite that spark within you. This is something that I have been doing with my clients and something that has really shown results. So let's talk about that. First off, let's talk a little bit about laziness itself. This term often is misunderstood. According to the renowned psychologist Carl Jung, laziness has psychological implications which are tied to the lack of motivation rather than simply being an absence of action per se. So it's not something that we do not do, but it's the implications, something that is in our minds that doesn't let us act. He once said something along the lines, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, in order to avoid facing their own soul. And what this means is it's essential for us to dig deep within our souls and try to figure out what's holding us back. What are those psychological implications that are holding us back? Now, the first concept I want to introduce today is the 2-minute rule described by James Clear in his Atomic Habits book. This principle is simple but very powerful. If something takes less than 2 minutes, do it now. Don't delay this action to do later. If this is a small action, do it now. Do you feel lazy to make your bed? Well, it takes less than 2 minutes, so do it now. Don't want to wash the dishes? Again, 2 minutes. Do it now. Don't postpone this. This rule might seem trivial at first, but think about it in this way. These small tasks add up over time, and they build momentum, which is the crucial ingredient for staying motivated. Lao Tzu said, "A journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step." This wisdom applies equally to this concept. It all starts with small steps and small actions. Those actions that seem insignificant if taken in isolation, but are indeed giant leaps in reality. So those actions that we build up and store, they really do make the difference. And it reminds me of a story from a cognitive neuroscientist, Dr. Andrew Huberman, from Stanford University School. He once spoke, I think on one of his podcasts, about neurons in our brain called action neurons. These are actually the tiny cells that ignite when we begin to move, sending signals throughout our body that generate feelings of motivation. Let that thought sink in for a minute. We have feelings of motivation. And it's like a snowball effect. Starting with a minor action triggers these neurons, setting off a chain reaction of energy and inspiration. So once we do something small, we praise ourselves for this. We feel good about doing it, and it triggers off a chain reaction of energy and inspiration. This could be as simple as making your bed first thing in the morning, or picking up the book you've been meaning to read but were putting aside all the time for some reason. And now let's talk a bit about neuroplasticity, which is another fascinating concept that I want to discuss today in this episode. Our brains have the capacity to change and adapt based on our experiences and actions. What this means for us, humans, it means practicing small habits daily can literally reshape our brains. Say, for example, Joshua Bell, a violinist, which I adore. He didn't become a virtuoso, a master, overnight. He started with small practices each day, playing scales, learning sheet music, and over time his brain formed new connections relevant to his violin playing skills and leading him to master his craft. So, are you feeling stuck in life? Do you feel unable to accomplish your goals because you are too lazy? That's what you think, you're too lazy. Coming back to Carl Jung, this may be a sign you're avoiding facing something within yourself. But James Clear and Dr. Huberman taught us this. Small actions can ignite an avalanche of motivation. And most importantly, please don't be too hard on yourself. We all have days when we're less productive or motivated. On those days, take some advice about neuroplasticity. The brain is capable of change. So, what I want you to do, I want you to pick one small task today. Just one. Maybe, again, it's making your bed or doing the dishes, reading that book. Read one page. Do your bed, not perfectly, but do it. Wash half of the dishes, not all of them. The important thing here is to actually show up for yourself. If you feel today that you only have 10% to give to yourself, great, give it all. And you will see that it will actually be 100% of what you have. You might be wondering, how can these small tasks make a difference? Well, small changes and repetitions over time lead to the formation of new neural pathways, which help us master skills and create sustainable change. Just like this, every little task you accomplish is not just a tick off from your to-do list, but a small victory in itself. It's a step forwards. It's a step towards building resilience and growth. It doesn't matter how many minutes the task takes to complete it. It can be 1, it can be 2, it can be 5. It is still significant. And I want you to start practicing today, because the more you practice, just like Joshua Bell, the more you achieve and the closer you get yourself to that big goal that you're looking at, to battling that laziness. Albert Einstein said, compound interest is the 8th wonder of the world. He who understands it earns it. He who doesn't pays it. Can we not apply the same reasoning to our habits? Each small action is like depositing a penny into your motivational bank. Over time, these pennies compound into considerable wealth. And in this case, a wealth of motivation, resilience, and personal growth. So every single day you add a little penny into your penny bank. And over time, gradually, you build up that wealth. Now let's look at another crucial aspect: negative and positive reinforcement. I want to quote Dr. Robert Riscorla. He is a prominent psychologist known for his work in classical conditioning. And he very precisely described how positive reinforcement, like rewarding yourself after completing a task, can improve motivation. Equally important, avoiding negative reinforcement like guilt over perceived failures or setbacks is also essential for maintaining a balanced mindset. So whenever you praise yourself for doing something good, your brain remembers it. Just in the same way as whenever you feel bad about yourself for not doing something, or for doing something not to perfection, or not to some standard that you've set yourself. The balanced mindset is important. Imagine this: you've been avoiding going for a run in the morning because the idea of waking up early, going outside, it's cold, it might be raining, is daunting. But according to the 2-minute rule of James Clear we discussed, you decide just to put on your running shoes, to put on your clothes, and just step outside. That's what you do. Just go outside. Get dressed and go outside. That's 2 minutes. Before you know it, you've walked down the block. Then you start jogging a bit. Afterwards, you reward yourself with something you enjoy. Maybe it's a cup of nice, fancy tea, or some episode of your favorite series, or some small purchase. Doesn't matter. Behavior which is reinforced tends to be repeated. So essentially, when we associate positive experiences with these small tasks or habits, we are more likely to repeat them. And that's exactly how overcoming laziness begins. You begin small and gradually build up that habit of overcoming laziness. Here is a nugget from the concept of flow. I'm not sure if you're familiar with this, but flow refers to a state of total immersion in an activity where time seems to fly by. To achieve this flow state, it is suggested that you focus on tasks that are slightly challenging, but still within your abilities. So you focus on reading, for example. You read one page without distraction. And by focusing, what I mean is that you immerse yourself into this activity. You switch off all your other senses. You switch off your hearing, you switch off your feelings, you switch off the other parts of your brain which continue to speak to you about all the necessary things and all the important things that are going on in the world. You switch yourself off from everything apart from this page of book that you're reading this minute. It's like no one can achieve greatness merely through talent. If we take some best renowned athletes like Michael Jordan, for example, he found his flow through diligent practice and fierce discipline. And many other athletes did, like Beckham, for example, and I've seen it in his last series that I've watched about his family. I loved it, by the way. You train, you put effort into it, you train this habit of being disciplined, and eventually you achieve your result. All those successful slam dunks began with one simple action. Are you feeling overwhelmed by the enormity of your dreams? Do you ever feel like you don't know where to start? Well, The best way to predict your future is to create it. If you start creating your future today, no matter how tiny that first little step may look, you've already started. You are already standing on that path. You're already a part of the process. It doesn't matter how much you've walked to this minute. You started. And in this manner, you are steadily building a habit, and habits are life-changing. Habits grow stronger and stronger over time. I want you to remember this. Feed the ones that empower you. Those habits that do good for you, that make you stronger, that make you better, that make you smarter, that make you faster. I want you to identify those habits that do good and feed them every single day. Identify and feed. You're not merely doing a task. You are feeding your empowerment, your resilience, your capacity to face challenges head on. I always remember this example of Chris Wardle. He was paralyzed from the waist down due to a ski accident when he was in college. He didn't let these circumstances to define him, but instead he started practicing to move his wheelchair a couple of inches forward, then a foot forward, then a yard forward. By feeding the habit of incremental progression every single day, he went on to become the most decorated male skier in Paralympic history. Just can you imagine that? That's awesome. Whereas what he could do was just to give up and let his weaknesses, let his disability define him. But he didn't. Isn't that something? Every small step we take each day is shaping us into better versions of ourselves. And this is where I really want to talk about the scientific theory, which is called the mirror neuron system. Marco Lacabone, a neuroscientist at UCLA, describes this as neurons that fire both when we perform an action and when we observe the same action performed by somebody else. So what this essentially means that when you perform these small tasks regularly, even mundane like tidying up the room or organizing your desk or reading a book, you influence others around you positively without even realizing it. Your kids are watching you. What do your kids see? Do they see that you are lying on the couch, tired after work? Or do they see that you do active sports, that you read books, that you have interest in life, that you travel, that you go to see friends, you socialize? But I want you to remember that this journey is not about perfection. It's about progress. It's not about doing something perfectly well, but it's rather about doing something at all. Brené Brown, I love her. She's a professor and she's a very influential woman who's had an enormous impact on me. She says perfectionism is not self-improvement, which is absolutely true. Perfectionism can sometimes be harmful. It can actually lead to you not self-improving, but actually declining yourself. It might hamper progress. It's not about what will people think of your action. What will people think about this service that I'm delivering, this product that I am creating? What would they think about me talking? It's about I am enough. I am enough. Let's concentrate on this one. And every time you're tempted to berate yourself for not doing enough, remember you are enough. And it's the effort that counts. The effort, not so much the result, it's the effort that gets you to that result. There cannot be a result in the first place if you do not have the effort input in the process. Here's a little story about a teacher, an art teacher, that I came across sometime recently in a book called The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg. This teacher divided her pottery class into two groups. The first group was tasked to create the perfect pot, while the second one was told to make as many pots as they could within a given time. She wanted to see what would be the result in both cases. By the end of the term, what happened was the best pots didn't come from the group aiming for perfection. But strangely enough, they came from the group that was focused on quantity. However fascinating this is, but this is the result. This implies, in my opinion, that in the process of iteration, they honed their skills and consequently created better quality work. Like Bruce Lee used to say, I do not fear a man who practiced 10,000 kicks once. I fear a man who practiced one kick 10,000 times. I think it's truly fascinating. If we don't aim for perfection, but merely focus on performing the task consistently, we succeed. We get better at whatever we're doing. And the lesson here to take home is just keep showing up and doing what you can. However small that may seem to you today, it will lead you to very good results. The results that would make you happy and would actually make the difference. Like, say, Ernest Hemingway, I write 1 page of a masterpiece to 91 pages of shit. All first drafts are shit. That's what he used to say. Essentially, even great authors face hurdles with their creativity. So, what is Hemingway's approach? Writing daily without worrying about how good or bad his output was. His small daily habit was more important than producing a perfect page each time. Isn't writing daily a small task too? Just like making your bed or practicing scales on a violin. So friends, it's time to say goodbye to that daunting picture of your enormous goals and refocus your lens on the small, manageable tasks in front of you, just there. It's about time we understand and appreciate the power of tiny, consistent actions. Yet again, James Clear in his book Atomic Habits suggests, you do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. And what are systems, if not a collection of habits, procedures, and routines? We need to build systems filled with empowering habits, those that push us towards our goals, one small step at a time. Remember, every little action counts. Every small task is like a drop of water that eventually creates an ocean of capabilities and achievement. As we wrap up for today's episode, let me leave you with these words from philosopher Will Durant. We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. Your habits are small tasks. I want you to understand that each day is brimming with opportunities for growth and empowerment. It's like a vast canvas waiting for your brush strokes. And every stroke may not end up as you envisage it. But that's okay. Because the journey isn't about creating a perfect painting in one go. It's about learning with each stroke and becoming a better artist with every passing day. And that's exactly how we need to approach our dreams and aspirations, one task at a time. Embrace your small tasks, make them your daily rituals, your habits. Understand their power and watch how they transform your life, how you move towards your goals. Watch this process. Remember and think about your habits. Think about those that are good and those that are bad. But before we wrap up completely, please don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel for more discussions like this. Your support truly means a lot and helps keep these conversations alive. And once again, thank you very much for tuning in today. It was a pleasure sharing these techniques with you, and I can't wait to hear how they have helped shape your future. So until next time, dream big and remember, the only limit is the one you set yourself. This is Katie Kaspari signing off with a reminder: you're strong, you're resilient, you are unshakable. Keep pushing forward and eventually you'll get to wherever you're going. And remember, I see you. With lots of love and support. Bye.